Welcome back to the Whole Nine Yards here. Drew Pien with Brandon Krikorian on a Friday afternoon. Brandon, how does it feel to be home?
I think I made the drive this morning. It was actually an easy drive. It's usually takes 2.5, 3 hours, but today was an easy 2 hours. So that was good. That was probably the best part of it. But yeah, I mean, it feels good to be home. I guess how does it feel that I guess the semester went by pretty fast in my opinion. I don't know about you, but I thought it went by like
Yeah,
super fast.
it went by pretty fast. I forgot one thing I didn't bring everything obviously, but there's one thing I did forget, which was the power cord to my monitor that's like this right here. I have two monitors. I have one here and I have one here. So I have one in front of me, one to the right. The one in front of me, I don't have the cord to. So when I try to look at the recording and everything, I have to look like this way. So if you see me look this way, I'm looking at, Brandon and me. If I'm looking straight, I'm literally looking at nothing. So I guess we're just gonna have to deal with it for today. But yeah, I guess we'll just get into predictions this week, unless you have anything you want to start out with. Actually,
Well,
okay, we should start out with one thing. We should start out with Urban Meyer. We called it. I mean, literally our
well,
last
you
video.
called it.
I've pretty much called it the whole year. I want to
Yeah,
say
exactly. Yeah.
I've this is out of all my takes, this is a take that I think I don't think I've missed a single mark uh, on the whole Urban Meyer thing the whole year. Literally our last video is Urban Meyer's career already over or job already done. It's something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
Yes, his job is already done. He got fired a day or two ago. At this point, I think maybe yesterday. I forget if it was yesterday, the day before, but he's gone. I pretty much since he's been hired, I have not been a fan of this hire. I want to say, is that true? I want to say that's true. That I have pretty much not been a fan of this hire
Yeah, no,
since
exactly.
the
I mean, that's
beginning.
what, as soon as I saw the tweet that he was fired, I mean, I honestly thought of you because ever since he was hired and the draft and everything, just from the beginning of the season, you've said it's a terrible fit, and that he may not even get out of his first year, which I defended him in that aspect of him at least getting past the first year. And honestly, if it wasn't for the Josh Lambo story, which came out, which I think that's what actually got him fired, to be honest, because all the reports were saying that Shad Khan, their owner, was going to keep him at least till the end of the season. Now, maybe he gets fired in the offseason, but he was going to keep him. But I think that story is what put it over the top because no one really came to Urban Meyer's side. No one even said anything. So I would suppose that report is true that he said. But yeah, I mean, you were spot on. As soon as he was hired, you thought that this was not a good fit at all, and it turned out that you were totally correct.
Yeah, I we'll get into our predictions, but I think this team typically when their head coaches get fired, teams head coaches, they have a pretty solid week the week after, and then maybe they kind of start to
Yeah,
fall down to earth after that. But the Jaguars are 3-point favorites at home against the Texans. This is a spoiler, but I'll be taking the Jaguars. I think it's good for Trevor Lawrence that Urban Meyer's gone. A lot of college coaches come to the NFL and don't really work out, and you know it it's for different reasons a lot of the time. But Urban Meyer, listen, he in the college level, I think when he goes to a university, everybody knows who he is. He's a top. I mean, at least in of our generation, he's probably top two college coach of all time, or I guess of this generation. I mean, Saban's one, obviously. I think you put Urban too. My guess is Urban goes too, and he kind of brings that culture with him, and everybody knows that it's Urban Meyer, and these college kids do give him respect. In the NFL, I think it's just completely different. I don't think he just gets that respect by default, and I'm not sure he's the best X's and O's coach as it is already. And if he's just more of a recruitment type of guy, then that just doesn't really matter as much in the NFL. I think the narrative going for Urban though was that college coaches who come to the NFL typically have a really good feel for what great players are coming out of the draft each year, and I mean we'll see if that holds true or not. But for at least this specific draft, we're not going to see it for the future, though. I think that was one of the best things about hiring Urban is that you do kind of have that advantage of Urban has seen these college guys. He had to recruit pretty much all of the big guys, so that would have been an advantage in the draft. But you obviously don't have that anymore. It'll be interesting to see who they hire next, and I'm not sure if this is a good job. Obviously, you have Trevor Lawrence, but I think most coaches would rather have a Herbert. They'd rather have a Mahomes, obviously, but out of the young prospect type guys, you'd rather have a Herbert. You'd probably rather have a Burrow at this point. So I don't know how good of a job it is. I think it's a pretty decent job, but there's no doubting that if I'm a head coach, I'm really scared to take it because you don't really, typically speaking, you don't get more than one shot in the NFL as a head coach, unless you have like a, maybe like a Josh McDaniels type path. But there's just really, if you bust on your first NFL head coaching job, you're pretty much done. And in Jacksonville specifically, like when it's ugly, it looks really ugly. And I would, if I'm a head coach, I'm reluctant to take that job because we just have not seen a head coach work out in Jacksonville. So
Yeah, I know I saw or heard someone say that they're looking for an experienced coach, an experienced NFL coach, not just an experienced coach like Meyer, for the next job. And I heard a name, and I'm going to throw it out there. This isn't obviously from me; I heard it from someone else. But some people may be opposed to it just because of his last couple jobs. But a lot of people have been talking about Jason Garrett for this job, which I think that's a good hire. I think it's someone who brings stability to an organization that has only known chaos and disruption for the basically the entire time the franchise has been a franchise, except for a couple years here and there. I think it's just a good guy to have. He's a good locker room guy. He's a good media guy. Everyone seems to like him. Even if you don't like him as a coach, the players seem to like him. I think it's someone who can just bring your franchise, especially someone like Jacksonville, just stability for the next couple years so that when you get back on the right path and you're at least you're not going to win 10 games, but you win 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. Then when Lawrence turns, you're assuming that over those next couple of years, he turns into the guy you think he is. Then you get the coach that, the Sean McVay, the Staley, if whatever, like the next hot young coach that's on the market. Then you get him in the next couple of years. So I've seen that as well. And I think that's the right path. I don't think they should try and go for a splash hire again. I think they should go for someone who just knows what to do and knows how to bring an organization and win games. Even if he's not going to bring you to the playoffs, even if he's not going to bring you to anything, spectacular, I think that's the right path to go to for a team that has only known, like I said, chaos and being bad the last 20 years, basically.
I'm not going to tell you it would be a bad hire, but I don't think I'm a fan of in the NBA, I'm a fan of the transition, the bridge coach. I'm not necessarily a fan, but I think it's fine in the NBA. In the NFL, I'm not sure I'm a fan of the bridge coach because coaches just don't get fired after you go 10-7 or 9-8 and make the playoffs. And I think that's kind of what your idea would be, is you kind of start to pick up some steam, get a couple years of stability. But in Jacksonville specifically, or Jacksonville especially, I just don't see you. Let's say you hire Jason Garrett, he brings some stability, and you're like an okay team that goes 9-8 and maybe 10-7 the next year, maybe squeaks into the playoffs. Are you going to fire Jason Garrett after that? Even if you have the next, Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan, let's just say it's Kellen Moore in this case. Are you gonna fire Jason Garrett for Kellen Moore? I just don't think Jacksonville would be in that position. I'm not a fan of the bridge coach in the NFL. To me, if Jason Garrett were to get fired after being hired, it would probably be after a pretty bad year. And I don't think you can just willingly go into a coach and say, yeah, he may bring us a 9-8 year and then we'll fire him after he kind of has a down year. I just think in the NFL, that's just, I just don't think you should be operating like that. I think you should be playing to win all the time and not playing to, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Jason Garrett hire. I think it's I don't even think it's a high floor. I could easily see Jason Garrett going 3-14 with the Jaguars, and I could not see him going much better than what he did with Dallas, which is pretty much mediocrity, unless he has a really, really good roster, which they're not going to have in Jacksonville. So I would go for another, maybe not splash name in Urban Meyer, but I would go for a guy that I think has the potential to at least be the coach for the next 15 to 20 years. To me, Jason Garrett, if you hire him, you're doomed for mediocrity at best. And yeah, I would go for, I don't know what the name is. Maybe it's, I don't know. Does Jim Harbaugh? I don't know. It's we'll see. But I wouldn't go for.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not gonna say I disagree with what you're saying. But I think it depends on certain different franchises. If this is like, I don't know, whatever other franchise that's at least known, they're at least competitive and they're just looking, they just had a bad coaching hire and they're still a competitive team. I think it's different. But for a team like this, that again, besides 2017, this decade, they've basically been the worst team in the NFL, record wise, just franchise wise, everything wise. So I think that it's not the bad move, especially for the specific case that is the Jaguars. Now, like, when would they fire him if he does put together a couple decent years? I think you have to look at it. Maybe you stay with them. Maybe he actually turns out to be the coach that he couldn't be in Dallas, but maybe he can be in Jacksonville. I doubt it, but maybe. Or you just do fire him after you get some seasons together, but you're still around that 500 mark, and you know that if you bring in a Kellen Moore or a Sean McVay 2.0, that he can lift Lawrence even more. You can lift your team more. You obviously spend more in free agency. So I don't think that's the bad path. And honestly, that's the path I see them choosing. I just, from going from this situation, it's hard to trust someone who's never been a head coach before, even if he is the next guy, even if it's Kellen Moore. It's hard to trust someone who's never been an NFL head coach. After the situation that you just had. Not saying that they'd be like Urban Meyer, but it's hard to do it 2 times in a row.
I think it's kind of hard, but I mean, if they're willing to hire Urban Meyer and take that risk, I think you should be willing to take that risk again. Could it be equally as bad? Yeah, but to me, what do I get from hiring Jason Garrett? I'm just not sure I get much, and I'm not sure he'd be bringing stability. So.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he was my coach for all those years. His record's one of the best in Cowboys history. I think, I don't have great feelings towards him, but I think he's a solid head coach. And again, he wouldn't be running your offense per se. You'd probably have an OC for that. So I think he's just a solid head coach who can at least bring 6, 7, 8 wins to a team that would just need that. Jacksonville isn't looking to make the playoffs next year. It's just impossible. They're not going to. So I think that would be the right path if I was Shad Khan, honestly. But it seems that you're disagreeing. But I guess we'll see when they hire someone. Like I said, I think it's going to be someone who's had experience as a head coach or someone who's just been in the league a long time, whether OC, DC, assistant head coach, something like that. I think it's going to be someone like that, not a college guy or not, some young up-and-coming offensive genius guy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we'll get into our predictions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can talk about it during the predictions, but all these games being moved and everything, it's kind of messed up everything, to be honest. I'll just say this. I don't feel confident in a lot of my games that I chose this week because I probably would have chose other games that have been moved. And honestly, they don't even have a line right now, so it's impossible to pick them. But we'll see how this week goes after, because I think this could be a big week. Yeah,
we do have, I have San Fran as 8.5 point favorites. You have them as 9.5 point favorites.
Oh,
do we want to just, yeah. I mean, I guess we both picked San Fran, so I mean, that's a spoiler,
we could meet in the middle. That's
sure,
fine.
Yeah, we'll just do 9. Okay.
And for Jacksonville, I have them at 5 on mine. I didn't pick them, but on the thing. So do you want us to go in the middle? Or
I'll just do 5. It's fine.
You could do 4 if you want. I mean.
Yeah. Okay. We'll just put down the middle. Call it 4. Okay.
Right. Are there any other games? No. All right. Yeah. Those are. Yeah. Everything should be good now.
Okay. All right, I'll go first. Yeah, games have been moved around, but whatever, I guess. I'll go first. This is the line I have. Pats at Colts. I have the Patriots as 2-point underdogs. I'm taking New England. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm not super confident in this, by the way. I don't think this is a Pats win 100%, lock it or anything necessarily, but I think this is a pretty good line. The Patriots have had I would say a tougher schedule. They've had better wins, at least. They've had better wins. The Colts, I think, are still a relatively inconsistent team. They're very dependent on Jonathan Taylor, obviously, and I think Belichick, I think he's going to make Carson Wentz win this game, and I think he's not a fan of Carson Wentz. I think he views Carson Wentz similar to Josh Allen, which is he can just be a train wreck sometimes. He probably likes Josh Allen more. I think everybody does, right? But I think Belichick is going to make Wentz make some tough throws and really just play smart football, which in some high pressure situations, we have seen Wentz crumble for sure. The biggest game of the year was probably that 34-31 Tennessee game, and he threw a pretty awful pick. So, yeah, I'm going to take New England to win this game outright. I'll take the extra 2 points, though, for sure. I think the Patriots have a better defense, even though the Colts defense isn't bad at all, but I like the Patriots. They don't have Damian Harris for this game, but Stevenson is good enough, so.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at this game and I I was gonna go. I mean, if I were to choose it, I'd go Colts. Honestly, I the only thing that would make me not want to choose them, or the reason I didn't choose this game, just because the Wentz versus Belichick dynamic, I think that's going to play heavily in the favor of New England. But just in terms of the two teams, I feel like the Colts will win this game. To be honest, I think this is going to be a lot on Mac Jones, and we'll see how he can perform. In a pretty hard environment, I'd say. I think it's going to be loud. I mean, Colts Pats. It's always like it's been a rivalry for the last since Manning and Brady, obviously. So I would have went Colts if I chose it, but again, I didn't choose it. My first game I did choose though, which I mean I don't love it, but it's Jets at Dolphins. The line's 9.5. Obviously the Jets are the underdog in that one, but I'm going with the Jets. The Dolphins have been playing really good. They've won 5 straight since they started off 1-7. But they don't have Waddle in this game. They do get Gaskin back at the running back position, but again, I think the loss of Waddle there, he's arguably been the same as Chase, to be honest. I mean, maybe Chase has the more explosive plays, but Waddle's been just as productive with a worse team, with a worse quarterback and a worse offense. So I think we'll see how Tua plays without arguably probably his best wide receiver. So I think that could play a little bit of a factor. And again, the Jets, I feel like they usually play good like every couple of games. Now, last game they were decent at the start, but then really fell off against the Saints and then Eagles as well. So I think, division game, I think they could be competitive. And again, 9.5 points. So I think the Dolphins are a world beater. Are they going to put up 30 points? In my opinion, no. So as long as the Jets get 10 to 14 points, I think they can cover this game.
Yeah, this is a tricky. It's a division game. I don't love the Dolphins, to be honest. They're not bad. Like, they're better than what they were when they were 1-7, but I could realistically see the Dolphins winning this game by more than 9.5 because the Jets are so bad. If the Jets turn the ball over 3 times, then I mean it's going to be tough for the Dolphins not to cover. But my second game is 100% the worst game of the week, I think, unless you are really interested in the Urban narrative. It's Texans at Jaguars. Jaguars are 4. I have this line at 4. Jaguars are 4-point favorites. I'm taking Jacksonville. Typically, after a head coach gets fired, we typically see the teams play pretty well. I guess there are times, it really depends. Like if the players love the coach and he gets fired, then maybe they don't play as well. But in this case, I think every single player in Jacksonville is going to be motivated as hell to get a win here. They're playing against a Texans team that is just bad. David Culley never should have been a head coach. The only reason he is the head coach is because somebody is going to take that job. Obviously, even though it's the worst job in the NFL to take, probably without Watson, for sure it is. It's still an NFL job, and somebody's going to take it, especially if it's somebody like Culley, who, if it wasn't for the Texans job, probably would never have gotten a head coaching job. So, but he doesn't deserve. I don't know if he doesn't deserve it, but he's not fit to be an NFL coach. I like Jacksonville off of the Urban Meyer firing. I think they're all going to be motivated. We'll see. I don't know. It's a game that I could be wrong about because these teams are just so bad that like, whoever turns the ball over more is going to lose, probably. So we'll see. But I like the Jags to win this, and I'll take them by more than 4.
Yeah, I had this game on my list, and I took it off last second for Falcons Niners. I was going to go Jacksonville because, again, the Urban Meyer thing, usually a team does come together, especially in a situation like this, and they do play. And, again, they're playing arguably a worse team than them, which is pretty hard to, figure that out. But at the same time, I just couldn't put myself to do it because, again, the Jaguars aren't a good team. So even though Meyer's not there, I mean, the players are still the same. So how much better can they really play? We'll see. I don't know how much better they can play. Now 5, I guess 4 points it is. It's not a lot, obviously. And again, you're playing a Texans team that, has David Mills as their quarterback and David Culley as their head coach. and you're also the home team. But I just couldn't push myself to actually do it because it's still the same team, even though the coach isn't there. So I just need to. If it was a week later, then maybe. But it's tough, to, like, the 2 or 3 days later to try and pick that same team. But for my second game, I'm Bengals at Broncos. I mean, you have it as well. It's such an easy game to pick, in my opinion. Obviously the Bengals are on the road. They're 3-point underdogs, but they're the better team, even though they technically have the same record. I think everyone knows the Bengals are the better team in this one. Now, I don't know what the conditions are going to be like. Obviously, playing in Denver, it could always be tough, but the Bengals should win this game. And again, if anything, we have the 3 points to cover no matter what. But this should be a Bengals win. And again, this will be a big win. Obviously, it's a big game because it's two wildcard teams. But the Bengals are the better team, just if you look at talent wise, roster wise, everything. So it should be. This seemed like the easiest game of the week, and maybe that's maybe it's a bait, but you have it as well. So I think we're on the same page with this game.
This line is just surprising to me. Listen, I know the Broncos are at home, and it's a good home field. Mile High Stadium is for sure one of the best, if not maybe the best home field advantage in the league. Probably not the best, but it's up there for sure. And the Bengals are a really inconsistent team. We've seen them have some pretty bad losses, and we've seen them have some pretty awesome wins. So they're an inconsistent team, but as long as the Bengals just don't completely flop this game, I think they're 100% the better team. The Broncos, just their offense is so inept that I don't see them winning this game, even with a pretty solid home field advantage. The Bengals being a pretty inconsistent team, they're probably just. I mean, the Broncos may be just as inconsistent as the Bengals, just as a team. So, I think this could be Vic Fangio's last year. I know they're 7-6, but you essentially had the first 3 games for free. It was Jacksonville and double New York, I want to say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a free 3 games to start the year. So far after that, you've been 4-6, which is pretty mediocre. To me, if the Broncos don't make the playoffs, I would fire Vic Fangio. Even if you do, unless you go on like a run and win a playoff game or something, I still would fire Vic Fangio. I don't think he's the coach at all, to be honest. I don't, but I'll take that's kind of irrelevant, at least for this specific game. I'll take the Bengals to win. I'll take them to win big. I'll take them to win by like 14. I think this game gets ugly, so.
Yeah, we'll see. I think the Bengals should win this game. But we'll see how much it is. But it should be a comfortable win for the Bengals. But my next game, again, another game that you also have, is Falcons at Niners. The line is
9.
9. Okay.
Yeah, 9.5. I had 8.5, so we split it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So 9. So line's 9. Favor of the Niners. I honestly was jockeying back and forth between Falcons or Niners, but honestly, when I was looking up these games, I had to look up COVID situations just to make sure. The Falcons, none of them are really dealing with anything major, but I think the Falcons have a couple, while the Niners really don't have any. But again, the Niners are the better team. Atlanta's maybe the worst 6-7 team ever. But we'll have to see what the records are on that. But it's up there for being one of the worst. But the Niners, coming off a huge win against the Bengals on the road in overtime, they're the better team. Kittle has been turning it up ever since he came back from injury. So as long as he stays healthy, they're going to be a potent offense. And again, obviously with their run game as well. So 9 points. Obviously Debo's there as well. So it should be enough. The Falcons can maybe score, but their defense cannot stop them. So as long as Jimmy G doesn't turn the ball over, I don't see how they don't cover 9 points.
Yeah, I think I'm higher on the Falcons than you are. I'm taking this game as well, and I'm taking San Fran to win by more than 9. It's not a game that I'm super confident in, though. I think the Niners are for sure the better team. I think what are they, 7-6 right now?
Yeah.
I think they're a very good 7-6 team. Like, I think, to me, if we were to restart this season over again, I think they would be looking at potentially winning the division. I think they're a team that, if you had played the season 10 times, I think, for the most part, they're looking at, like, 11-6 and not maybe what they are this year, which is probably 10-7 or 9-8. But I think the Falcons are a pretty good team too. Listen, I mean, if you were to simulate this season 10 times, is Cordero Patterson this type of player every single season? I'm not sure, but if you were to have a Ridley for a full year, if Patterson were, I think this is a solid team. I think Matt Ryan's a pretty solid quarterback. He's not anything special necessarily, but he's good. He's arguably better than Jimmy G. I think they're pretty similar, but I think he's arguably better. He maybe is better. I don't know, but I don't think this is a bad 6-7 team. The Falcons are the more desperate team, which makes me scared, right? I don't like betting up against the more desperate team, but to me, on paper, the 49ers are just too the talent gap is just too big for me. So I'm going to take the Niners, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Falcons were to cover this game. I wouldn't be shocked if the Falcons won this game, but because I'm not in love with a bunch of games this week, this was one I picked, and I ultimately do think the Niners will win by more than 9. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually have been somewhat decent on the Falcons this year, but, their defense is so bad and their offense just isn't good enough to overcome that defense. And again, you're always expecting a Matt Ryan interception or dumb turnover at some point in the game, usually towards the end when they're driving or when it's a close game. So even though I'm probably down on them more now than I was maybe earlier, I just, they're an irrelevant team anyways right now where the season is. They're not going to, I mean, they may make the playoffs, but they would have to win this game for sure to do that. But it's just, their defense is so bad. And again, I saw them play the Cowboys. I saw them for an entire game. That was a really bad team. But
did they have Cordero though?
I can't exactly remember. I think he did play, but I don't know if he played the entire game. But it was also a blowout from the jump. So,
I'm actually gonna. I kind of want to change to Atlanta here, just to have some more.
Okay.
Because I think I'm gonna change to Atlanta. I'll take Atlanta to cover. Now, am I super confident in it? Obviously not, because I just flip flopped. But listen, I do think this team. And am I changing it because I think you're being a little bit too harsh on Atlanta? Maybe, but when the Patriots played the Falcons, they had no. This was when Ridley was out. He still is out, but this was when Ridley was out. This is when they had no Cordero. I think this is a pretty solid offense with Cordero. He's a pretty underrated piece to me. Maybe not underrated necessarily, but I think he's a legitimate threat on offense. He makes this offense more than what it is without him. It's not like a primetime game. It's a 1 o'clock. I'm pretty sure, 99% sure it's a 1 o'clock.
It's a 4 o'clock game.
4 o'clock. Okay, well, it's still not a primetime game, which is fine. I don't love the Falcons in primetime for obvious reasons, but I'll take Atlanta to cover this actually. And I think it makes our predictions more interesting. So, and I kind of gave an argument for Atlanta because you gave such a strong argument for San Fran. That is, Matt Ryan's arguably the better quarterback. The 49ers are still they're a really good team on paper, but they've had some inconsistency this year. The Falcons have too as well for sure, but the Falcons also at times do look pretty good on offense. So I'll take Atlanta I think the 49ers win this game. I still have the 49ers winning, but I'll take Atlanta to make it close. I'd like the 49ers to win by a touchdown, but that means we still cover. So
yeah, it's actually a weird CBS game between two NFC teams. So it's still not primetime or anything. It's not like it's a Roma or an Ants, but it's a weird CBS game. Because again, that's usually a Fox game, obviously. But yeah, that's 4 o'clock window. But my next game, Packers Ravens. The line's -7 Packers. I'm going Green Bay. I wish the line was a little bit less. I don't know how much faith I have in them actually covering 7, but I like that more than the Ravens covering, to be honest. It sounds weird, but I don't know. That's just the way I thought about it. Lamar obviously had the ankle sprain. It's not a high ankle sprain. It's just a normal one. So he should play, but we'll see how limited he is with his mobility. But again, this team, they started off so hot because they were overcoming those injuries, but the injuries mounted up. And then they realized that those guys that they were missing were obviously key pieces. So that's why they've been struggling. They're at home here. Obviously, they are better at home. But, Green Bay is one of the better teams in the NFL. They do play teams close. Like, obviously, we saw last week against the Bears. It turned into a blowout, but obviously it was close the entire first half. But I see Rodgers having a big day. The Ravens obviously have no secondary. Still no Marlon Humphrey's out for the year now. So I expect them to kind of tear up that secondary, and the Baltimore defense really isn't as good as it's been the last couple of years. So I just expect a big performance from Rodgers, honestly, and I just expect them to outscore the Ravens more so than the Ravens just like not scoring at all. But so yeah, I just expect them. I expect the Packers to have a big day offensively, is what I'm trying to say, and cover 7 points.
The Ravens, listen, they're a completely depleted team and a non-super mobile Lamar. He's still going to be mobile, obviously, but a Lamar that is not 100% him is pretty much the 20th best quarterback in the league. If he's not as mobile as he should be, then yeah, I think he's like the 20th best quarterback in the league, so I think it's 100% fair to take Green Bay. So if I were to take the game, I would take Green Bay too. To me, I love the Ravens. They're a playoff team at 8-5, even if they finish off the year not as strong as they started, I guess. But yeah, I would take Green Bay as well. My next game, so I did. This is my last game, right? Yes. Okay. Panthers at Bills. Buffalo is 10.5-point favorites, and I'm taking Buffalo. The reason I'm taking Buffalo is I think they're 100% the more desperate team. I know the Panthers, their season's on the line, but the Panthers are bad. They don't have a quarterback. They don't really have an offense. No CMC, no quarterback. Your offense, your receivers are okay. I mean, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, those are good players, but with no quarterback to throw the ball to them, their offense is going to look awful. Their defense, well, it can be good, is inconsistent. Sometimes they look good, sometimes they don't. And the Bills, I don't love the Bills. They cannot run the ball to save their lives. Their defense has been good, but it's inconsistent still. No Tre'Davious White, which is unfortunate, but I'm going to take the Bills to win this game by more than 10.5. When they beat teams, they typically win by a lot. At least this year, that's what the case has been. And this is one of those just teams that are bad, and this game could get ugly real quick. The Bills probably don't have to be able to run the ball to win this game. And because of the pattern of them beating up on teams when they win games, I think it's fair for me to take them to win by more than 10.5. I could easily see them winning by more than 10.5. Is it Newton playing this game? I'm pretty sure.
I know Darnold was designated to return from the IR. I don't know who's starting.
It literally does not matter who is playing. If it's Walker, if it's Newton, if it's Darnold, those are like arguably the three most turnover-prone quarterbacks. And all it takes is probably a couple turnovers, and the Bills probably win this game. Allen's still a great quarterback, even if I don't love him. He's still a really good quarterback. They obviously have a bunch of offensive pieces. As long as it's not, as long as the weather's not what it was last week against the Patriots, Dawson Knox should be able to hold on to the ball. So, yeah, I think this is a pretty easy pick to me, at least. I could see the Panthers covering, but I could in no way if the Panthers won this game. Sorry, if the Panthers won this game, that would be crazy to me. That would be insane, and then that's when you start to get the territory of like the Bills. The Bills are genuinely not going to make the playoffs if they lose this game. They still easily could, but I mean, they lose to the Panthers, and you'd have to assume they lose to the Patriots the next week. That would be really scary. So I think the Bills have to win this game. I think they're going to win big, just like pretty much we've seen them do this whole year. So to me, might be the pick I'm actually most confident in. I think I'll go with that. I think this is my most confident pick of the week, is for them to win by more than 10.5. It's tricky because games with big spreads, we do see a bunch of backdoor covers, so we could see that. But out of all the games this week, this is the one I'm most confident in. Yeah,
that's exactly the reason why I didn't want to choose this game. I think the Bills probably would win by more than 10, but it's just like you don't know. Carolina's such a bad team. They've been playing so bad recently. Sometimes a team just gets something going for one game, and even if they're not going to win the game, they can at least stay somewhat competitive. So it just scared me. I didn't want to go near that one. But my last game, Monday Night Football, Vikings at Bears. And one thing I'll say is I don't know why. I understand why the Bears are always on primetime because it's Chicago and it's a big market, but they're such a bad team. I don't understand why they're always on prime time. Obviously, they played the Packers last Sunday night. They played opening Sunday night against the Rams for the season. That made zero sense. Now they're on Monday night again. The line's -6 Vikings. Again, I'm taking the Vikings in this one. They need it. They have to have this game. To go to 7-7. Again, the Bears are demoralized. Nagy's obviously going to be gone after this season. I think the players are probably starting to give up if they haven't already on the season. But yeah, I just see the Vikings honestly destroying them. This is a game where you have to go in and just know that you're the better team, but you just have to, from the first possession, you just have to show you're the better team. Now there's the Kirk Cousins primetime thing, but it's the Bears. I just don't see how he struggles in this game, to be honest. And if he does, then I guess I should have known because it's primetime, but I just don't see how he struggles in this game, to be honest.
Okay, so even if Kirk Cousins struggles, which If he throws 3 or 4 picks or whatever, that's not. Let's say he throws a couple picks, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 200 yards, a mediocre quarterback rating. That's what I would define as struggling for Kirk this year at least. I mean, they can still easily win this game as long as he doesn't literally, pull the Nathan Peterman. Then he can play bad and they can still easily win by more than 6. This Bears team's not good. I think Fields had a solid half last week against Green Bay, and I think out of all the rookie quarterbacks from our sample size we have so far, he's probably been the second best after Jones.
I mean,
it's not. It's not. Listen, it's not like that's. I'm not calling him the MVP of the season. I'm just out of all the rookie quarterbacks we've seen thus far, he has been the second best, I think.
I would almost say he's been the 4th worst. I think I would say.
I mean, yeah. I'm actually curious, and this is not really related to the predictions, but I don't really have too much to say anymore on the Vikings and Bears, anyways. But would you trade Mac Jones for Justin Fields if you were the Patriots right now?
No, okay. Not right now.
Would you trade Mac Jones for any other rookie quarterback?
Right now, no, it's impossible. But down the line, obviously, potentially. But no, right now, it's
no. This is a now or never. Shad Khan comes up and he's like,
never, no. Because
wow. I mean, I would in a heartbeat. I literally not even in the space between my 2 heartbeats. I would trade Mac Jones for Trevor Lawrence in an instant. I
think Lawrence is the only guy. Again, right now, I think Lawrence is the only guy. Even then, I'd be hesitant just because, again, you already know what you have with Mac Jones. I think that's so important that you already know what you have. He already has a floor. Now, his ceiling may not be as high as Lawrence. It probably will never be. But I already know what his floor is going to be, and it's going to be a solid quarterback who can lead you to wins. He may not be the reason you win the game, but he can at least lead you to wins, or you can win a lot of games with them. So I think that's super important. I think any team would love to have a quarterback who you just know that he can at least win you games. And then obviously, I think every team would love to have that. I think that now look, you look at things as like a superstar bust kind of way, as like a Super Bowl bust way. I think you do. You may not know, but I think you do. And I think Jones. I think every single team would love to have Mac Jones.
Every single team. I mean, I don't think. Okay, well, if it was, I guess the Chiefs would love to have him as their backup so they could trade him for some draft capital.
I mean, obviously, if every team didn't have a quarterback right now, if the only option was Mac Jones, every single team would say yes. They'd be like, yes, I'd love to have a guy who, if it's between him or some rookie that you're going to draft, and you don't know. I mean, would you rather have Mac Jones or I'd rather have Mac Jones.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. The thing is I'm not going to put a percent on it, but there is a legitimate possibility that Mac Jones is Kirk Cousins. We saw early on what Kirk Cousins was. If this is Mac Jones' ceiling, that's bad. We need to see Mac. There's a lot of things we need to see Mac Jones from me to be confident in him being the quarterback for the next 15 years. I think he's good enough to be the quarterback for the next 4. He's, as long as he continues on this trajectory, he'll start throughout his whole rookie contract. But I mean, I need to see next season is going to be, to me, that's the season where we're going to find out if I'm a big Mac Jones fan or not, because his arm strength needs to make major progression to me. And I need to see the coaching staff have more, trust in him. We haven't seen him play in any cold weather yet, and to be a quarterback of a cold weather team, that's obviously important. Brett Favre had the arm to do it. Aaron Rodgers had the arm to do it. Obviously, Brady has obviously had the arm to do it. We'll see if Mac Jones does or doesn't. I'm not expecting it this year. It's a rookie year. Quarterbacks don't always have the best arm in their rookie years. It took Brady time to develop the arm that he eventually got. I think it's going to be the same for Mac. But if he doesn't develop that arm, then, I mean, that's just tough. I would rather have Trevor Lawrence, and it's a take that's not going to age well, because obviously he's in the worst situation in the league, and he probably will have a worse career than Mac Jones. But I think I'm a believer in, a rookie quarterback's legacy, is heavily defined by the situation that you're put in. And I think that's true for even quarterbacks that we've seen bust, like Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold could have been good had he gone to the Patriots. I believe it. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm just coping. I don't know, but I think Darnold could have been good if he went to a good situation. Maybe even Wilson. I don't know about Wilson, but yeah, I would trade. I would trade Jones right now. I'd trade him for Lawrence. I wouldn't trade him for Wilson. I don't think. But would I trade him for Lance? I think I'd probably trade him for Lance. I think I'd probably trade him for Fields. Now again, he's probably gonna have a better career than all those guys, probably. But to me, I'm very scared of the possibility that Mac Jones' ceiling is Kirk Cousins. So
But see, I mean, that's what I was saying when you think kind of superstar or bust is that, I mean, you're saying that Mac Jones is probably gonna have a better career than those guys because of the team that he's on and because it's going to be a winning franchise for as long as Belichick's there, and even when he retires, it's probably still going to be. But he's not. He may never be a superstar. Now he may turn out like a Brady and somehow develop into like one of the better quarterbacks in the league. But again, if anything, he's going to be around the top 10. He's going to be around there. He may never be top 5, but he's going to be at least 8, 9, 10, which I think that's really valuable. Like if it was my team and we were going through quarterbacks, every couple of years we've been going through quarterbacks, rotating through guys. Couldn't really draft one because you weren't in the right position. There's no free agent. Couldn't really trade for someone, and we landed with Mac Jones. Like I'd be ecstatic to have him. I think that he's a really solid quarterback. Over the next couple of years, he's going to get better. I mean, there's no question he's going to get a little bit better each year. And again, you already know the stuff that he's good at right now as a rookie, and in a second, third, fourth, fifth year, you can only assume he's going to get better with all the physical traits compared to what he already has in his rookie year. So I would be ecstatic to have Mac Jones if it was my team, to be honest. Again, you want the superstar, of course, but there's nothing wrong with having a guy who can lead you to wins and lead you to the playoffs, and then you don't know. Maybe he has a great playoff run, and then you win a Super Bowl. So I would love to have a guy like Mac Jones.
if you could right now, would you trade Prescott for Jones?
Well, no, because he's obviously a proven commodity. I mean, there's like Lawrence, Lance,
Oh,
Fields
so
aren't
Jones isn't
proven
a proven commodity
commodities.
though?
Well, compared to someone who's been in the league for 6 years
I don't
and
know.
basically did what Jones is doing in his rookie year. I mean, Dak went 13-3, basically doing the same stuff, not throwing that much, relying a lot on the defense and a lot on the running game. That's basically what Mac Jones is doing, to be honest. So we'll see. I mean, maybe in 3 years, I would change that opinion going back to this year. But no, I don't. I would not trade him because Dak's the more complete player. But if I had a different if you were the 49ers, would you trade Jimmy G for Mac Jones? Like, assuming you didn't have Lance
Uh,
obviously behind them, but
I mean, yeah, because Jones is worth more. But if we're taking out the fact that I would be able to retrade Jones for something, then I mean, I already have Lance, so that's a tough
no,
question. But
I'm saying if there was no Lance, if it was like Jimmy
okay,
G was
okay.
recorded, there was no Lance.
Well, yeah, I mean, because Jimmy G, we know what he is, and Jones still has a sliver of not a sliver, but Jones obviously has a shot to develop more than Jimmy G. But I think right now Jimmy G is just as good as Jones, if not better. So
I think
right
they're
at
very
this specific
comparable.
moment.
Yeah, I think they're very comparable, but Jones. Again, I think Jones definitely has the ability to be. I think Jones has a better ability to be a better quarterback than Jimmy G. Maybe not ever had, because if he stayed with the Patriots, he probably would have been pretty good. But um, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like as a Pats fan, I feel like you should be really happy that you have Mac Jones because I know you picked them for the Super Bowl, but you really couldn't have expected them to be what they are right now if Mac Jones
I
was your
don't
day
think
one
that's
starter.
I don't think that's true. I mean,
But you
I
didn't think Mac Jones was going to be this good through the first 13 games of the season, though.
maybe not this good, but I don't think he's been all that. Listen, maybe I'm just a hate. I don't think he's actually been all that special. He's been okay. He's been decent, but the best thing about him is that he just has been a game manager. I think that's fine for your rookie year, but that doesn't mean I'm not at least a little bit worried about the future and his arm strength and all those just those tangibles that a guy like Mahomes or Herbert or Lawrence or Wilson already has, and a guy like Jones doesn't have right now, and it's scary that he may never develop it. Now, I guess it's also scary that Lawrence may never develop, the intangible type of stuff that Jones has. But I think it's more times than not, it's easier to develop the intangibles, the pre-snap, the ability to not make a risky throw or something. I think it's easier to develop that than it is to
I
develop,
don't know.
the big arm. So
I feel like it's the other way around. At least I look at it that way. I'd rather have a guy who has the intangibles and then can work on the other stuff. And I mean, I view Brady as that perfect example. I feel like he had all the intangibles. His arm got better over the years. His decision making got better over the years. He got better as a player over the years. So I'd rather have a guy who, like Jones, has all that stuff already and then can develop. Maybe he won't be the talent that Lawrence would be in the future, but he'd be somewhat close and he'd already have those intangibles where Lawrence, and again, I know he's on a bad team in a terrible situation, but he hasn't looked good. I mean, you really can't point out one game where he's actually looked good. And again, that's not all on him, but through 13 games, you'd at least expect to have one good game. I mean, I think every rookie quarterback who's had that much talent, the number one pick, all this hype, has had at least one good game in their rookie year. I'd be surprised to find someone who didn't have one good game.
I have not watched every single one of Lawrence's games, at least not every single one of Lawrence's full games, but I mean, I think we've seen flashes from Lawrence. I've seen flashes from Lawrence, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, listen, maybe I'm being too harsh on Jones, but I am at least a little bit worried about his future. Now, I'm still happy to have him over whatever, over Davis Mills or whatever in the third round, but I'm at least a little bit worried that his ceiling is lower than maybe people think. So. Maybe it's because I just saw Tatum, who I thought was going to have his ceiling is still super high, but, he may be Carmelo Anthony version 2, which would be, I think, unfortunate. Maybe as a Knicks fan, that's offensive to you, but I would not want Carmelo Anthony Jr. on my team or version 2 or whatever. Tatum, I know it's comparing cross sports, but Tatum had a much higher ceiling has a much higher ceiling than Jones. And even then for Tatum, he's still not going to reach probably not going to reach what I would have wanted from Tatum. So maybe I'm just, I've seen some unfortunate stuff recently and I'm skeptical and I want the guy who has the talent from like Lawrence. I don't know, but I think I've only heard great stuff about Jones. So maybe I'm just playing devil's advocate and the whole, he hasn't developed this, and this, but yeah, I mean, in general, I still am happy to have Jones. Obviously, I'd rather have taken Jones than pretty much anybody else in the draft at 15. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll see what happens in the next 3 years. We'll know the answer to this question. But, I think it's, again, if I was any team, I would love to have Mac Jones as my quarterback. I think it's a really solid guy. And again, he has the ability to develop into, a solid number 7 or number 8 quarterback in the league. I think that's a real possibility for him. Maybe even higher, who knows? But I think if he's your number 7 or 8 quarterback in a rankings list in the next couple of years, I think you're super happy to have him as your quarterback. And I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I would be if he's the 7th or 8th best quarterback in the league. Yeah, I'd be really happy. Specifically with Belichick, because if you give Belichick anything that's a competent quarterback and then give him a competent roster around that, then you're looking at what you're looking at right now. Because I don't think you have a particularly talented roster in general. Obviously, Jones is nothing more than a competent quarterback, at least right now. So yeah, I would be happy.
Yeah, but I mean that's our predictions. I guess just to go over the records, we did update them from last week, correct? I think we did.
I don't know that we did, but
well, we've done 14 weeks, so 14 times 5 is 70. And I'm 34, 25, and 1. So, I mean, that is 70 games. So, I think we did update
50. Them. No, that's not 70, is it? Am I stupid?
No, it's not 70. No. I'm stupid, yeah. That's 60. No, that means we're off by like 2 weeks then.
We're going to have to retally these at the end of the year.
How are we? Wait, 30? So.
Okay, so we're 14 weeks through the year. 14 times 5. Is that 70? Yeah, that is 70. If we update this week,
that's 60 games. That means we're down 2 weeks. I don't think we're down 2 weeks though.
I mean, is there a week we didn't do predictions? I don't know. Maybe there is.
No,
I mean, we did them every week.
Yeah, we did them every single week. So we must have missed a week. Well, I don't know what week we would have missed though. I mean, besides last week, but the week before we definitely updated it. So we'll have to look through it, I guess. But
yeah, okay.
We both went 3 and 2 this last week, so the record it's the same record, just different numbers. But
so as of right now, 14 weeks through the season. I'll look at it We'll look at it before the year ends, but I am half a game ahead of you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So, but I think that's pretty much it. I mean, Urban getting fired, obviously. Uh, NBA, there hasn't been too much. I mean, Steph Curry broke the 3-point record. I don't care, to be honest, but maybe you care about
Yeah,
that
I
at
don't
all?
I
Or?
don't care. Well, I actually have a question. I have a name or a person on my mind who would be the next guy, maybe not to break Steph's because he still has a couple more years left, but to be the next guy that at least let's say breaks Ray Allen. I know James Harden's fourth and he might do it, but the next guy who isn't on like the top five of that list. Do
Trae
you have a
Young?
guy in mind? Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Trae Young.
I mean, probably. Listen, I think Steph Curry's record will get broken. To me,
Oh yeah, it will at some point. Yeah.
there's just no doubt in my mind with, obviously he changed the game so much. So, one, that's huge. And I think he didn't hit his prime until, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years into his career. So, if somebody has even just in his first 5 years of his career, not only did Steph Curry he played what, 3 years of college?
At least 3 years. Yeah,
He played more than one. There's going
two
to be a
years,
guy
something
who's a
like that.
3-point specialist, who's a top 5 pick in the draft, who plays 1 year at college or maybe 1 year in the G League, comes in and not breaking records. Maybe he does break records for rookie 3-point shooting. And then he continues to shoot more and more threes. He may not he doesn't have to be just as good as Steph as a 3-point shooter, but if he's just better in his first 5 years and then consistently is playing 70 plus games a year, shooting somewhat similar to Steph Curry's 3-point rate, he's going to break it. That record's going to get broken. There's just no doubt in my mind. He's not going to go down as like the Wilt 100-point game record, anything like that. That will 100% be broken. That Steph Curry record, even if he plays for another 3 or 4 years at this rate. But I think
Yeah,
Trae Young
and
could break it. Trae Young could be that guy.
I think Trae Young's probably the guy again out of the current guys right now that aren't like again on the top five list or whatever. I think it's Trae Young because again he came into the league shooting a ton of threes. He's actually dialed it down a little bit. He's only at 7 per game. He was at 9.5 his second year, but again he's only 23 and he's always going to have the ball in his hands because again he's going to be he's one of the top players in the league, so he's always going to be shooting the ball and having the ball. So it almost seems inconceivable that it won't be him. But again, at some point in the future, someone in the next 20, 30, 40 years, assuming, I mean, I don't want the game to move like this, but it's most likely going to move to the point where almost every single shot is going to be a 3-point shot. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen. I think that's super bad for the game, but there's going to be a point to where maybe a rule change has to come, but that's probably going to be the case in the next 15 years, where it's just almost only 3-point shots. And yeah, the people when Steph came into the league, 3-point shots weren't even like a thing, honestly. And now it's every single shot. So, and again, people who are younger now also work on shooting. While honestly, like even when we were younger, I don't feel like people were like focused on shooting. And again, that was when we were younger, which was like 15 years ago. So, or 10, 15 years ago. I don't think people were like focusing strictly on shooting. But nowadays, I think people like young kids, I think they like strictly work on shooting, and the other stuff just comes when it comes. That's the way I feel like it. Like people are being raised nowadays when they play basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty involved in basketball, especially when I was younger, probably, grades 3-ish through, up to high school pretty much. I was pretty involved in basketball. I did played a lot of basketball. I think it's safe to say 100% that the game's going to be different from now on, the coaches, because back then coaches did not want you shooting threes in practice. It was a dumb thing. It was a
Yeah.
dumb thing to practice 3-pointers back in the day. And nowadays, I think, once you get to the point where the kids can actually, have the strength in their legs and their arms to actually make it like to the rim. Once you get to that point, I think you start practicing 3-pointers because that's just the one thing. You don't have to be super athletic. You don't even have to be able to dunk the ball. JJ Redick, I think, dunked the ball once in his career. JJ Ball he dunked the ball once in his career. If you're just a good 3-point shooter, then you're going to find a spot in the NBA, and you're for sure going to find a spot in college. So to me,
Yeah.
if you're a coach, you need guys that can stretch the floor. Everybody needs to be able to shoot a 3 in the modern NBA, and even in non NBA, you need guys that can shoot the ball. That's just the reality. So you can never go wrong. It's like free throws. when I was young, that was a thing that coaches wanted you to practice every single day. I think it has to be threes too now. Every single day you should be practicing your free throws, practicing your 3 pointers. Obviously, you're still practicing the fundamentals and stuff like that, like on ball defense, post defense, post. You're still practicing all that stuff, but 3 pointers are not going to be frowned upon for young kids growing up because of Curry, and I think eventually that record gets broken by multiple people. And that's not me saying that eventually we will see a shooter better than Steph Curry, because I think whoever breaks it probably won't be a better shooter than Steph, but that record will be broken.
Yeah. And one last quick thing, it just came out. The Nets are bringing Kyrie Irving back, but he just won't play games. He'll only play games outside of New York.
Really?
Yeah, that just with
Wow.
they said obviously Durant's playing a ton of minutes. He's playing like 36 minutes a game. Harden's out, the COVID stuff, the injuries that they have. Joe Harris is also out. They're bringing him back, but he just won't play in New York. So any the Knicks or Nets home games or Knicks away games, he just won't play. But every other game he can play.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting. That makes me my first reaction to that is, are we gonna see Irving get the vaccine? Because I just still don't see how the chemistry is gonna work in a playoff series. I mean, round one's whatever. If you're high enough seed, you're playing against freaking, I don't know, Cleveland or something. Like that's an easy first round I'm not worried about, but second round, I mean, you're gonna play a pretty solid team. I just that could cause some weird chemistry issues. So
And what
yeah, I don't know
happens
how to feel
if
about it, but
what happens? They said he's still unwilling to get it. Let's assume he just never gets it. But he plays the rest of the season, obviously the away games or whatever. But if you get to the playoffs, they're obviously going to be a top four seed, so they're going to have home games. Like, is he just going to miss the first two games of the series, and then a game five, a game seven? So like, is he just going to miss those games? I mean, he technically has to, right? So
at the moment, yeah, I mean, I feel like when they went up to Kyrie with this, did they really just say, "Hey, we need you because of these injuries and because of COVID and because of all this, we just need you for the away games," or did they come up to Kyrie and say, "Hey, uh, we need you, but we can't have you just playing away games. Let's get you back on the court for now, but in order to keep this going for the whole year, at some point we need to be able to work out something for you to start playing home games." That's what I would assume. I assume Kyrie's coming back. He's going to play some away games, but they have some sort of plan in motion to get him the vaccine at some point before the playoffs. Maybe it's not until, maybe it's not until, you know, the playoffs. Maybe it's not until literally a week before the playoffs start, but I would be shocked if by the playoffs he is only playing away games. Maybe eventually he just gets benched again and he doesn't play any games, but yeah, I would be really, really surprised if come playoffs he is playing away games and not playing home games. I think he
I
either
would
plays them all or plays none.
I would be as well, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know. It's him. It's him. Like I don't. It's he's he may just not get it, and then he just wouldn't play. I don't know. Again, maybe the rules change at that point, but honestly, the way it's looking, it probably wouldn't change. It'd probably be even more strict.
Well,
So, um,
that's down to state law. That's down to New Jersey law, I want to say, or New York or New
Um,
Jersey. I
well,
forget,
yeah,
but
I mean, no, I mean, the reason he can't play the home games isn't because the Nets say he can't. It's the law in New York. So unless that changes, then it doesn't matter if what the Nets think, if they want him to play home games or not. It's the state law. So, and again, unless that changes or he just gets the vaccine, then, he wouldn't play in a playoff series. Yeah.
yeah.
In the home game. Yeah.
But I guess that's pretty much it though. So some interesting Kyrie news. We'll have to see how that unfolds going forward. It'll be interesting to see him get back on the court. But that's pretty much it. Appreciate everybody who stayed to the end of the podcast. Brandon, anything else before we head out?
Just check out our other channel. I'm putting up a video. I guess, well, when you see this, it'll already be up, but it'll be up about F1. I've already put one out video before, but this will be the final video. So check that out. It's already going to
Yeah,
be
I
out,
did.
but
I
check
did
it
see
out.
that. I did see that. I know nothing about about any of that stuff, but do check that out.
Yeah.
I did hear some people talking about that stuff though.
No, it's getting bigger. I mean, I was one of the people. Again, it's from a show. The Netflix does a behind the scenes of it, so that's how I got into it, and I think that's how a lot of America got into it. So I think it's a big thing. I think by the time next year comes, it's going to be a pretty normal thing to hear about in America because it's obviously big in Europe and all the other countries. But yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, check that out. I will put a link in the description to that. But as far as the main channel is concerned, we'll be back.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, because of all the games being rescheduled.
Yeah,
I guess
we got 2 games on Tuesday, so
yeah,
maybe on.
probably. I mean, I guess it depends. Like if something crazy happens Sunday, but stay tuned. If you subscribe and hit the notification bell, it really doesn't matter when we post it because you will be notified when we do. So yeah, but we'll be back at some point in the next 4 days. Goodbye.